Good morning and welcome to another edition of the Kitchings Table. We're always happy to be with you every Tuesday morning at 10 a.m. And we hope that we find subjects that enlighten you, entertain you, provide you with knowledge and wisdom, or a combination of the three. I'm your host, W. Earl Kitchings, and as always, joining me for the show is my co host, Ronleen Kennedy. Good morning, Ronleen.
Good morning, Earl. Let's bring it this morning. We got work to do.
Well, you can tell she's energized and ready to go to talk about today's subject. Our topic and title of our subject today is the rise in value of HBCUs. So, Ronline, I have a question. Do you know who the largest Black owned businesses in America are?
The largest black owned businesses. No, enlighten us.
The biggest Black businesses in America, who each employ over 100 employees and are worth and valued at millions to hundreds of millions of dollars, are part of a group called HBCU.
HBCUs?
Yes, those are the largest. Now, I know people tend to think businesses are businesses that pretty much make money, but there are two types of businesses. There's a for profit and a not for profit, but both are businesses, both create or generate income, both employ people, and both have a mission and a purpose to serve. So this group called HBCU is are not for profit businesses, but businesses all the same. And they each employ over 100 employees and are valued and worth millions to hundreds of millions of dollars. So for those who know what HBCU, that acronym, what that means, and for those who don't, HBCU is Historical Black Colleges and Universities. They are the largest Black owned businesses in America. And if anyone wants to dispute that, I would welcome them to bring that to the table because when we talk about hundreds of employees, when we talk about buildings and property with value of hundred of millions to hundred of millions of dollars, I don't think we're going to be able to identify that many Black owned businesses that collectively fit into that group. So that's why I phrased it the biggest Black businesses, not biggest Black business single, but businesses collectively. So that's who they are. They have been around for over 100 years, some of them, most of them, and they continue to stand the test of time,
Mhm.
providing education to people who are Black and anyone else who desires to get a quality education. HBCUs are not confined to just enrolling or accepting Black students into their halls and walls. They are friendly to anyone who wants to apply and attend there. And if you are not Black and you have of some other persuasion, just understand that your experience at a HBCU is going to be far different than your experience at a predominantly white institution or college. But I wanted to start off with that because in looking at a paper written by John Michael Lee Jr. and Samad West Keys titled Repositioning HBCUs for the Future, I wanted to just provide kind of a background as to who HBCUs are, where they got their starts, and where they're heading. So, uh, historically, Black colleges and universities are a unique segment of institutions in America higher education, defined as institutions of higher education whose principal mission is the education of Black Americans. HBCUs are unlike other types of colleges and universities. They have emerged as places to educate African Americans at a time when they could not attend predominantly white institutions by law and by custom. Prior to the Civil War, only 28 African Americans received bachelor degrees from U.S. colleges and universities. 28. The majorities of HBCUs were founded primarily as private institutions, yet the passage of the Morrill Land Grant Act of 1890 led to the establishment and financing of 17 public black colleges and universities. These colleges and universities were created primarily to focus on liberal arts or vocational education. And for those who don't know, there's always been this design to minimize black education to keep it from expanding to the highest level. So it was always directing from high school to college, directing black children for the most part into liberal arts or vocations. Now, we tended to maybe look down at vocational educations over the past few years, although it's making a comeback because it seemed not to be the chic thing to do. But as we are discovering, vocational education are those skills and trades. And I think that's probably the thing that caused people not to want to do it, a trade. Well, if you learn how to repair air conditioners, if you have an air conditioning business, and you know that every house in America, for the most part, has an air conditioner, uh, it requires people to work on those air conditioning. Every house has plumbing. Every house has some type of carpentry needs. Every house has a roof. So these trades of vocational education uh, skill sets are very valuable. And for those who know how to make it work to be of greater value, it can turn into some very lucrative businesses. So, anyway, these colleges have been designated initially, but now they are into the sciences, to technology, and into business. They're also law schools and everything in between for you as a Black American. You, as parents of Black children, want to send your children to these schools to get a mindset of skills that will benefit them in the long run. So today, there are 4,879 degree granting 2-year and 4-year institutions in America, almost 5,000 colleges and community colleges in America. And HBCUs make up 3% of those institutions in America. 3%. So 1% would be about 48, 2% would be 96, 3% would be about 124. There are currently 105 HBCUs in the United States, and the majority of the HBCUs are 4-year institutions, and a little over half are public. So when we say public, we're speaking from the term of a HBCU having state funding. So if you hear the word state in their name, or you hear the words agricultural and mechanical, or agricultural and industrial, those would be state funded schools. They receive state assistance. So half of the 105, a little over half, are state funded schools or public institutions, while the remaining portion are all private schools, mostly schools funded are structured from black churches. Black churches. The one unique college and or university in America, especially for blacks, is Howard University. Why is that so unique? Howard University is located in Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C. is not a state, but it is the capital of the United States, and it is called a district. It is called the District of Columbia. And Howard University receives funding from the federal government. So please understand that they are unique. They sit in a very unique place. They have a long tradition of success. I believe they have graduated the most black doctors in the United States. They have a school of medicine, and that school of medicine has been open for many years, and they've turned out many successful doctors. So Howard University is one of the more prestigious. I believe all the black colleges are prestigious, but when we start to looking at ranking, they will probably be one of the most prestigious, especially because Howard University almost has an endowment, if not right at a billion, just under $1 billion, which means they have funds in a bank account somewhere that total a little less than $1 billion. So their financial securement and security in the scope of things is pretty strong, and their alumni is just as strong. So Howard continues to be that place of higher learning for blacks. So I wanted to just put that out there first, Ronline, and before I go any further to talk about some of the other particulars of black colleges and their enrollments and their tuitions, I just wanted to give you an opportunity to weigh in on our opening and introductory this morning for our show.
Yes, so this is very enlightening, and I thank you so much for bringing this to the forefront because the Moral Land Grant Act of 1890. When I think about that, that was when I did the little research on it. It was saying that this came about in 1862. So it took nearly 30 years in order for it to come to pass to be able to grant us land to start or finance our HBCUs, which I believe it was what, just 17 of them at the time.
17, yes.
Okay. So with 17 coming on board at the time in the 1800s, and um, the number of graduates that has taken place since that time of the HBCUs sprouting throughout the lifetime of history, and it's what you were talking about, just 3%, so just 3% of the less than 5,000 degrees, that's not a whole lot of people, that's fits in those marginalized groups, if you will, or the systemic inequality groups or minorities, period. So, as I was talking with you about the Supreme Court ruling that said that affirmative action is now uninstitutional. And when you're talking about the HBCUs that are receiving state funding, that is being under attack now with what they can teach. So, whether it's they said, the education that has come under fire with the African American AP studies, it's like, okay, what does that mean? If you're going to a historically black college, And if they're receiving state funds, they now can't be taught their history. So how can they be taught their history? When it is a historically black college or university. So we have to be mindful of, it goes back to what you said, and I heard it this morning, follow the money. And based on this segment today, I pray that everyone is doing their part to understand or try to understand to gain more knowledge about what the Supreme Court ruling means, what it means for your future generations, what it means when you talk about agricultural and mechanical, what that really means to us as Americans today in those groups. So I look at when you talk about agricultural, I'm looking at this, our food sources, as we already know that our black farmers are now under fire, as in their land being taken from them through eminent domain in order to house these big, large businesses for um, technology, if you will, with the green cars, the cars that runs by batteries and that kind of thing.
Yeah,
But
electrical cars.
electric cars. So their land is now being confiscated. They're giving pennies on the dollar. So it's about the money. Can't give them the money in order to relocate to another land or what have you, but it's going to take their land just to build highways. So Earl, I'm just waiting for you to just bring the rest of this history on to home. I'm hoping that by the time this segment is over with, that people will be encouraging their students to take up a trade of some kind, vocational or whatever, if they're telling you that college is not for them. We need to try to figure out how to make them college ready, how to get them tutors or whatever it is that they need from a young age so that they can master the math, they can master the reading, so that all of these things, as they're comprehending higher level education, that they won't feel like they are out of the box or education is not for them. Education, and we need it. We need our medical doctors. We need our scientists. We need everything, all hands on deck in order for us as people to keep going, to keep living and live healthier lives. I turn it over to you, Earl.
Well, you're very correct when you speak about the value that these schools bring, and those black colleges who have the designation of agricultural and mechanical, meaning, like you said, their curriculum was structured around farming, anything to do with farming and agriculture, which, you know, we don't didn't we valued it then, maybe not so much now, and now we kind of returning back to the value of agriculture and the fact that even if you are not totally immersed in agriculture, the land still has value. And when we lose land, we lose two times because you lose the land and you lose the value that the land offers and brings. Now, there are not many colleges. So we have colleges with the designation of A&M, Prairie View A&M, Florida A&M, Southern University A&M are at least the three I think of. We have North Carolina A&T, Agriculture and Technology, or technical. That's what the T stands for. Uh, North Carolina A&T turns out a lot of outstanding engineers. It produced one of the first black astronauts to go up in space on the space shuttle. Unfortunately, on the second trip up, that particular space shuttle imploded, as we know. Columbia, I believe it was. And then we have A and I. Now, Tennessee State if you go look up Tennessee State, you will see Tennessee State A&I University. They don't go through the whole name, but agricultural and industrial. So when we talk about the industrial aspects of uh, life in America and the things that deal with things dealing with industrial and things that are being made. Uh, so again, mechanical, technical, industrial, all of these things are um, things that require you to basically do some vocational things. So Tennessee A&I are the schools, or is the school rather. So we have those, and as I stated, these HBCUs make up 3% of the almost 5,000 colleges and universities in the United States. And I wanted to go a little further and look at, well, what are the enrollments at some of these schools? Because here's a fact. In 2011, there were 335,421 students enrolled in HBCUs. 335,000 students plus. Most of them are who? Black students. Those numbers have gone up somewhat over the last 10, 11 years since that information was provided. Right now, North Carolina A&T shows that they have an enrollment of 14,000 plus. Howard University, 11,000 plus. Florida A&M, 10,000 plus. Texas Southern, 9,000 plus. Tennessee State, 9,000 plus. Jackson State, 8,000 plus. Prairie View, 10,000 plus. So what that is saying is this: there is an uptick in black students making a decision as to what college and or university they will attend. In 2020, 2021, some 48,000 plus degrees were conferred by HBCUs. 10% were associate's degree. And let me just make note of that particular fact. That associate's degree is a 2-year degree. And the listing of black colleges and universities based on uh, the listing that I was able to find has included some 2-year institutions as black colleges and universities. They're not the traditional ones. Going forward, more than 2/3 of the 48,000 degrees conferred between 2020 and 2021 were bachelor degrees, 14 were masters, and 6% were PhDs or doctoral degrees or doctor's degrees. Total revenue for HBCUs between 2020 and 2021, $12.4 billion, with 1.8 billion from student tuition and fees. Total expenditures were 8.8 billion, of which 2.2 was spent on instruction. This according to the Department of Education. While colleges and U.S. colleges and universities were seeing a drop of about 1.1% between 2021 and 2022, black enrollment has boosted. You've seen about an 11% increase, according to the National Center for Educational Statistics. So you're seeing a rise in black students making a decision to want to go to black colleges. You're seeing nearly a 30% uptick in the number of applications coming into these black colleges and universities for students who want to attend colleges and universities who may feel may be a little bit more favorable to them, or the environment may be a little bit more favorable to them. So they want to be in a place where they feel comfortable. They feel that they make a difference. They feel accepted. They don't have to feel like outsiders, or like most black students sometimes can feel on a major college campus. So you're seeing this uptick, and for the colleges, that's a good thing because it makes them have to expand facilities and curriculum. That is a good thing. Whereas you can expand the curriculum relatively quickly and easy, the building of buildings to facilitate classrooms and other educational facilities or venues on these campuses uh, takes a little bit longer, specifically when we're talking about housing. Because when we're talking about the housing part of a college or university, that is a very large part of the equation when you've got housing for students. And my experience has been that in attend or viewing predominantly white colleges, that their dormitories most of the time are higher than 4 or 5 stories. So when you have some buildings for housing that go beyond 5 stories, that means you can facilitate having more students. And that is one of the things that uh, has not been in the case for black colleges. Nowadays, uh, you're seeing more apartment buildings being built, that type of living situation, for students to one apartment with uh, some common living areas. Irregardless, I would say that the housing aspect is the major chunk of the money that has to be spent for students, not just black students, but students anywhere. But to see the rise in this is so great for these colleges, because with the increase of students wanting to attend, your coffers, your financial coffers rise. You can now offer some different or more classes, and of course, you get a larger group of alumni who potentially can give back. In looking at what the National Center for Educational Statistics also put out, Ron Lean, there was a comment from Dr. Benita Reed as it relates to non African American or non black students attending HBCUs. And like I said, I don't believe HBCUs really uh, care for the most part who's attending the school. They know what their mission is. They're there for black students because black students weren't allowed college access uh, after the Civil War and probably up until uh, the 1930s and 40s. If you saw a black student in a college setting back in the 30s and 40s, even the 20s, most of those schools were going to be in the Northeast or in the Midwest, Ohio, Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, and over to the Northeast, New York, Pennsylvania, places like that. You weren't going to see that. You didn't see that until the 60s, late 60s, early 70s in those southern states. But uh, Dr. Reed made this comment. She said, white students' decision to attend HBCUs communicates their desire to embrace the full HBCU experience, not alter it. And what that means is if these students are going to come to an HBCU, they are not wanting to change anything. They're wanting to embrace what's there, because this is a culture, this is an environment, this is something they're not accustomed to. And if they want to value that and experience that, then they are not expected, and I'm sure they won't be allowed to alter how HBCUs environments are and what their traditions are. They just it's not going to be tolerated. You came to my school, you're not changing anything. You either fit in, get in where you fit in, or you can go to a different school. But we're not looking for you to change any of our traditions, any of our legacies, anything like that. You opted to come here, as they say, when you go to Rome, do as the Romans. So if you're going to come to a HBCU, embrace that experience. And a lot of times, what they'll find is it's a rewarding experience, because they will see the value of and care and traditions that you see. I don't know if they do it at a lot of black white colleges, but I know one of the important factors that we have at black colleges, the singing of the alma mater. That is a very strong tradition, and you are expected to learn the words of that alma mater so you can sing it when it's played. So I see we've approached our break point. So I want to take a break and let everybody know that this is the Kitchings Table, heard Tuesday mornings here at 10 a.m. And we invite you to always join us for what we believe to be interesting and fascinating topics of discussion, points of views, or just information. Because in a day and time when information is on the World Wide Web, and we've had a discussion talking about what the World Wide Web used to be. It was called encyclopedias. That's what it used to be, encyclopedias. If you had some encyclopedias, you were doing good. But now, electronically, online, you can pretty much find out anything you need to know, can know, do need to have is online. So this is the Kitchings Table. I'm W. Earl Kitchings, your host, along with my co-host Ronleen Kennedy. And our topic today is the rise and value of HBCUs, historically black colleges and universities. They've made their mark for over 100 years, and they continue to be viable places for black students to go receive a higher education. They are the largest black owned businesses in America. That says it all, Ronleen.
Yeah, that is a handful to digest. And like I said, I'm so grateful to be bringing this topic to us because when you talk about value, you know, I think about what has been drilled into us from children. You have to know your worth. And regardless of what someone tell you um, about yourself, you have to step over those things if they're telling you that you're worthless. As a matter of fact, just put it that way. That you were created for a reason, and you cannot let someone's attitude towards how they feel about life, how they feel about you, because they don't know you. They don't know the shoes that you've come to fill. And when we think about the people that have graduated from these HBCUs, the great things that they have gone on to do, the people that they have been able to impact in this world, we know that we must find our worth. And in order to find our worth, we must create our worth. And in order to create our worth, we have to be learning something every single day. Cannot let a day go out without us at least picking up a book to read, something that is going to be um, nourishing for our soul. Just like we get up in search of food every morning, we need to be in search of knowledge. So I'm glad that we're bringing this to us, to the world today.
Well, to say that we need to be in search of knowledge is a very powerful statement simply because the slogan knowledge is power, the slogan that the UNCF organization used, a mind is a terrible thing to waste. Those two things go hand in hand. Knowledge is power, and a mind is a terrible thing to waste. And when we devalue those two things, uh, our ancestors, went through a lot so that we could have an opportunity to learn, to read, to write, to think. These are things that when you have them in your physical mind and body, no one can take them away from you. No one can take what you know away from you. What you know is what you know. And each day, if you are seeking out some type of wisdom or knowledge or a combination of the two, then use that to do some things to better your situation or make a better inroad for someone else or a combination of the two of those things. But, Bronleen, I appreciate you saying that because we have to understand There's a difference between being rich and being wealthy. And when we are not doing the wealth part, then we lose out. So these HBCUs are here for the benefit. We have had a lot of outstanding graduates from these schools. We continue to have a lot of outstanding graduates from these schools in all facets of the workplace. So when we talk about HBCUs, Ronley, we're going to go down a list of, and I'm not going to call them out individual. I'm just going to go by state and let you know how many black colleges, and I got them broken out by traditional black colleges because some of these states are now creating colleges or community college, and they're putting them under the banner of being an HBCU. And when I saw that, I was like, I never heard of that school, but if that's what it is, then that's what it is. But the traditional HBCUs. So in the state of Alabama, there are 8 traditional HBCUs. Arkansas has 3. Delaware has 1. The District of Columbia has 1. Florida has 4. Georgia has 10. Kentucky has 1. Louisiana has 7. Maryland has 4. Mississippi has 5. Missouri has 1. North Carolina has 11. Ohio has 2. Oklahoma has 1. Pennsylvania has 2. South Carolina has 6. Tennessee has 6. Texas has 7. Virginia has 4. And West Virginia has 2. Those are the states with the traditional black colleges from uh, at least 80 to 90 years or more. Like I said, there are some other colleges. But I brought those up to bring up this last portion of what we're going to talk about today. And that is this. With with over 100 black colleges and universities in America, with each one of them employing over 100 employees, with each one of them being valued with land and buildings and anything else you want to tie into their physical plant, their physical makeup, they're worth millions to hundreds of millions of dollars. But when I found this information from CBS News website, I had to bring it to us because this is something that we need to be made aware of because it has happened. And because it has happened, it has created a void in funding. And is nothing like being underfunded when you're trying to do things. So in this online article, CBS News cited this. Historically, black colleges and universities in the United States have been underfunded for decades, with billions, that's billions with a B, of dollars in state funding that should have gone to those schools diverted by lawmakers, diverted by lawmakers for other purposes, according to higher education experts. HBCUs are now pushing to get this money these institutions say they are owed. At least $1.1 billion so far is at stake for up to 50 colleges that educate hundreds of thousands of black students. In the state of Maryland, $577 million are slated to be received from the state legislature for Bowie State, Maryland Eastern Shore, and Morgan State. In Tennessee, Tennessee State has been underfunded by roughly $544 million just dating back to 1950. $544 million diverted for other purposes, according to lawmakers. This contrasts funds that go to predominantly private white institutions, and they are not eligible for some of this direct state funding. But I'm going to call out just a few of the colleges from some of the states with the larger ones, just to show you how much they've been defunded or underfunded. So Alabama A&M in uh, Alabama A&M, that's another agricultural mechanical university, $60 million. In Arkansas, University of Arkansas Pine Bluff, $25 million. Delaware State, $35 million. Howard University, $57 million. Florida A&M University, $99 million. Morehouse School of Medicine, $56 million. And let me note this: the Morehouse School of Medicine has only been open for approximately 50 years. So you've taken $1 million from them almost a year. Louisiana Southern University, 60 million. Grambling, 48 million. Mississippi Jackson State, 60 million. North Carolina A&T, 93. North Carolina Central, 62. Langston out in Oklahoma, the only black college in the state of Oklahoma, 23 million. Lincoln University in Pennsylvania, 18 million. 24 million is owed to South Carolina State, 58 owed to Tennessee State, 90 million owed to Texas Southern, and 52 million owed to Norfolk State in Virginia. When you talk about that type of underfunding, and let me just reiterate this one statement: billions of dollars in state funding that were diverted by lawmakers for other purposes. And I'll segue to this. In the state of Mississippi, $5 million of um, funding for food stamps for families who are in that poverty level, low income. $5 million was taken, was manipulated from the state with the help of Hall of Famer Brett Favre of the NFL. $5 million were diverted and moved to southern Mississippi, where they built a volleyball facility for the University of Southern Mississippi volleyball program. $5 million. They know they did it. They know it was taken, and they don't seem to want to be wanting to amend or atone for that. And my thing is, with Brett Favre's name being attached to it, uh, until he pays back that money or helps pay back that money, I would rescind his being in the NFL Hall of Fame for that. If Pete Rose can be cut out of the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame for gambling, I think Brett Favre should be removed for stealing. That's just my opinion. You steal $5 million so the volleyball program at your alma mater where your daughter played volleyball could have a volleyball facility, but these families who needed this money are without. I believe Brett Favre could have found some people he knows to help with that $5 million if that's what you needed. I believe he could have had the seed money to do such, but instead, it's easier to take someone else's money and utilize it. So my thing is, until that money is put back in place, until they atone for it, and oh, by the way, let's put the interest on that $5 million for every year it's not paid back too. Let's put interest on that. So let's just be honest and fair about the whole situation. $5 million was misallocated. You could say misallocated. Some will say stolen. When you know you're taking something, I think that's stealing. So if they did that, I think that and you don't hear many people talking about the fact that Brett Favre had something to do with this, because he knew that they were taking this money from where they were taking it, because he spoke to the individual who helped allocate the money, because he didn't want nobody to know his name was going to be attached to this money coming to southern Mississippi. That was said in a recorded interview. So my thing is, if he was a right man, a just man, he would have come forth by now and made amends and atoned for it. But I've yet to hear Brett Favre come out and say, "We made a mistake. I made a mistake. I'm going to do something and everything I can to put that money back." Oh, by the way, the state of Mississippi had paid him over $1 million in speaking fees that he never went out and spoke at, but he got the money, but he never spoke. So, when you know that you're doing some things like that, you need to be called out on it. And for the 5 million, he paid back the 1 million plus dollars. He paid that back, but that 5 million is sitting over there in a building at Southern Mississippi where people are starving or living in deplorable conditions. So until you fix that, Brett Favre, I think you should have yourself removed from the NFL Hall of Fame, because that's not what a Hall of Famer should be doing. That's just the way I see it, Ronleen.
I agree. I definitely agree. That's when you think about the babies,
Yep.
would you starve the babies?
Yep.
You know, that kind of thing. Um, when you're starving someone that is trying, I think this is just critical and key. When I think about, the lunch program that
Mm-hmm.
comes under fire with the schools, period. And when you think about when you send a child off to college, as you say, housing is the largest thing, the largest bill besides the education itself, but it's the largest bill that has to be paid immediately. So, along with that, they have to be nourished every day, they have to eat. So, with that being said, Earl, if someone is taking $5 million just out of one state, and all of the other millions of dollars that you have named across all of the states that you've named, that's a lot of money being diverted somewhere, And then they saying by lawmakers.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, they hold the purse strings, and they know where the money is being allocated. And if you can find a loophole somewhere to divert this money, uh, as it's stated, for other purposes, not for education. There's no education value attached to a volleyball facility. There's no education attached to that. But a $5 million volleyball facility versus $5 million in tuition. How about that?
Hmm.
$5 million could have taken care of quite a. But it was from their low income uh, situation over there in Mississippi. That money was taken from, like, uh, whatever that program is for low income people for food and things of that nature.
the
That's
snap
where it was taken from.
the SNAP program.
SNAP programs and things like that. So you found a loophole, and you diverted it, hoping that nobody would pay attention. Yeah, they're not. They probably do things like saying they won't miss it because they don't even know it's there. So we know it's here because these lawmakers see these budgets from the state. The
Hmm.
governor puts out the budgets,
Follow
and
the
if
money.
you don't, yeah, and if you don't know that the money's out there waiting for you to take advantage of it, and the lawmakers do, and they find a way to move that money around. It's like the shell game. I'm gonna move that P around, and you got to catch it and find it. And
Hmm.
until you do, you're SOL.
And so that's what the Supreme Court should have been fighting, instead of this affirmative action thing. They should have been fighting about our money to be returned back to the schools.
Well, again, the Supreme Court will only fight when a case is brought before them to fight about. So if no one's bringing that case before them, that situation needs to be before Congress, because Congress allocates, uh, or the state legislature, they allocate the monies, not the Supreme Court. The monies are allocated. If it's federal money that was used, that money comes via Congress. And when that federal money is being misused, when it's being misappropriated, when it's being diverted, diverted, you heard some of the numbers of underfunding over years. I mean, if Tennessee State has been underfunded by $544 million since 1950, That's 72 years of underfunding. $544 million.
Yes, that
What?
goes back to what I was talking about. That means that not only are we being underfunded, well, the schools are being underfunded, but those employees are being underfunded as well because they can't make a better wage. So, Earl,
Exactly. Exactly.
I'll give it back to you to wrap it all up.
Well, I just felt that being that we're seeing an influx of HBCUs with the growth in student enrollment, and because there is a plea now to give this type of funding to these schools who have long been underfunded, just wanted to make folks aware of the value and the rise of HBCUs and how they're making even more significant impacts on Black children and students of color or anyone who wants to go there to attend. And for over 100 years, for some of them, uh, they've been a cornerstone for helping us to get educated. And being a graduate of an HBCU at Florida A&M University, I'm proud that my family legacy, my son, my oldest son graduated from there. Both my parents graduated from there. So our legacy at Florida A&M uh, is what it is. But we must continue to speak up and speak out for our colleges because they are the keys to tomorrow. So,
Yes,
Ronleen, that's going to do it for us today here on the Kitchings Table, talking about the rise and value of HBCUs. We hope everyone has enjoyed our show today. We look forward to seeing you next Tuesday morning here at 10 o'clock sharp on the Kitchings Table. Don't forget, go out and do something good for someone else. For Ronleen Kennedy, I'm Earl Kitchings. Until next week, we're saying so long from the Kitchings Table.
thank you.